Hello friends, welcome to this live teleconferencing session of Indira Gandhi National Open University. Today we are going to discuss one of the very pertinent topic of your MA education program, particularly the dissertation component of MA education program. And the topic of today's discussion, that is data analysis techniques in educational research. Before starting our discussion, let me to introduce myself. I, Dr. Niradhar Dey, Associate Professor, School of Education, Indira Gandhi National Open University. Welcome you all to this teleconferencing session. I welcome you on my personal behalf as well as on behalf of my school, that is School of Education. Friends, today's topic, that is data analysis technique in educational research, which is included in two different courses of your MA education program. First course is that is the educational research. Course code is MES016 that you have studied in the first year of your MA education program. That course will provide you a detailed understanding about educational research, that how you will understand different components of doing research in education, and further how you will pursue the dissertation course, which is included in the second year of your program. The course code is MESP001. Course title is dissertation. There you have to do a dissertation, a project. In the field or as per the nature of your research problem, you have to conduct a study, then you have to write a report, and further that report will be evaluated and a viva voce examination will be taken. So this is the process. The topic which is taken today for discussion, that is data analysis technique. When you will conduct the study, conduct the research work in MA education dissertation work, you are supposed to prepare a research proposal, and as per the research proposal, you have to do a study. You have to conduct a study. And in that study, one of the important aspect, one of the important point, one of the very important work is data collection techniques. That how you will collect data, what are the different tools that you are supposed to use to collect data, particularly for doing the educational research. So today's our focus is on that aspect, that how you will collect data and what are the different tools that you have to prepare, and what are the different types of tools is there, and how you can prepare the tool so that you can collect data. To go forward, on your screen you might be going through, these are the certain important discussion points that today we will be discussing. First is we will try to understand data collection as part of research in education, how data collection is one of the important part that we will discuss, and further what are the different nature of data, that also we will discuss. Then different types of data and its sources, from where you will get the data, what are the different sources that you will be using for getting data for your research, and what are the different types of data. Then third important discussion point is different types of tools used in data collection. So what are the different types of tool that you will be using? Further we will be discussing with full details. Then the next discussion point, that is preparation of tools and techniques for data collection. So how you will prepare the tool. Many a time as a research student in the second year, you ask question that how you will prepare the tool. Though counseling sessions are included in the dissertation course, I don't know whether you are attending the counseling sessions or not, but many a time you ask many questions, that what are the tools you are supposed to use and how to collect data, how to collect the secondary data, how to collect the primary data, and further how to analyze that data, and accordingly how you will prepare the research report. So keeping in consideration of its importance, every month I am taking particularly certain important issues, certain important topics relating to particularly your dissertation work. So now let us go forward to understand that is the tools and techniques used for data collection. But beforehand, let me to give a type of understanding about the research methodology or the design. So when we do the research, if I will say about the stepwise process that how you will conduct the study, we all know that research is a very systematic work. It is you can say it is also a scientific work. So that's why haphazardly we cannot proceed to conduct this study. This is a very stepwise manner that we will be proceeding for doing the research. So it will start from selecting or identifying a research area and research problem on which you will be doing your study. Then after selecting of a suitable research problem for your dissertation work, further what you will be doing, you will be just going through the very theoretical construct about that research problem, and further you will be stating certain research questions. What are the research questions are in your mind, and you will try to get the answer of those questions by stating certain research objectives. And if there is the requirement, if there is the need, you can also state certain hypotheses. I'm just talking about the process of doing research, then we'll come to the topic. As per the research questions, you have to state the research objectives. Then further, if there is the need, then you can also state certain hypothesis for your study. Then the next step is the research design or the research methodology. In a research methodology, you see on your screen that 4 important aspects that you're supposed to do. First of all, method of study or the design. So what are the specific method that you will be using for doing the study? So when I'm talking about the specific method, it means 4 types of methods that we are highly using in doing research in education, particularly at the master level for doing your dissertation work. The methods are like this. You can say first is the survey method, or you can also say that is the descriptive survey method. And the second method is the you can say experimental method. Third is the philosophical method or philosophical research. And fourth is the historical method or historical research. So here I am talking about the 4 different methods. In your study, you have to clarify that specifically on which method your study will be conducted. Okay, so your study will be based upon which method. When I talk about descriptive method or survey method, that means definitely you will be going to the field, and as per the subject of your study, it may be the students, it may be the teachers, it may be the community members, it may be the parents. So you're supposed to meet them, and if the subjects are the students, and if you want to know their achievement, if you want to know their intelligence, so you will use certain techniques to collect data. It may be a test, it may be certain questionnaire, or it may be a type of interview or observation. So I'm talking about different types of tools. So in survey method particularly, you have to collect data from the field. And if it is a type of historical method, mostly you will depend upon the secondary data, right? Secondary data means the report that has already been developed, already been published, which is available in different library and different other sources. You have to collect those data and you have to analyze those data, particularly in the historical research, historical method. Accordingly, in philosophical research also, mostly the data that you will get that is mostly secondary in nature. But many a time you can also use the primary data, particularly in philosophical research, and some part in historical research also. And in experimental research, you're supposed to do a type of experiment, just like in the physical science. This is a type of lab-based, or you can say a study which is based upon a controlled situation. There will be 2 groups. One experimental group will be there, particularly in education, and another control group will be there. And you will be providing 2 different treatments to 2 groups. In control group, you have to provide treatment, or you will give, or you will implement, you can say maybe a new method or maybe a new technique, or by using certain new technology, you will be teaching to the students or providing a new treatment to them by innovative way. And to the control group, you will be teaching them by using the, you can say traditional approach or the traditional method. And further, after after providing treatment to two groups, control group as well as the experimental group, you have to compare their performance. Okay, so on the basis of their performance, you can say whether the control group students or the subjects are doing better, or the experimental group or the experimental group students are doing better, subjects are doing better. So in this way, you can conduct a type of experimental study. So this is the part of methods of study or the design, that what particular method you will use for your study. And the second important aspect that's come under the research methodology, that is the population, sample and sampling technique. Population, sample and sampling technique. So here, for conducting a survey research or for conducting a type of experimental research, so what you will be doing, you will be identifying one area first. You have to identify one area on which area you have to conduct your study, right? You have to define that area and you have to delimit that area. And after delimiting the area, you have to define the population. So what are the population? They will be the subject of your study. So here population means, you can say the students, because you are doing research in education. It may be at the school level, it may be at the higher education level. So students, they may be the population, teachers may be the population, even if the community members, parents, they may also be the population. So you have to define the population, that what is the size of the population as per the area that you have already defined. And after defining the population, your next work is to define the sample, that what proportion of the population you have to select as a sample of the study. And for doing a proper sampling, what sampling technique you will be using, whether a probability sampling technique or method you will follow for selecting the sample, or you will use a non-probability sampling technique or method for selecting the sample from the population for your study. So this is, you can say, the second step that's come under the research methodology, that you have to define the population, and as per the population, you have to take a portion of the population by using a suitable technique. That will be the sample of your study, and your study will be based upon that sample. And the third important aspect under research methodology, that is the tools and techniques for data collection. So here, what are the different tools, what are the different instruments or the techniques that you will be using for collecting data, how you will prepare those tools, and further how you will implement those tools on the subjects to collect data, to get data. Because unless getting the data, it may be secondary or it may be primary, then you cannot analyze it. So that's why in educational research, definitely you will try to get the data. So here, your primary focus is upon the data. Then accordingly, you should prepare yourself that what are the techniques that you're supposed to use to collect data. So this is the third important aspect that's come under the research methodology. And the fourth important aspect, that is the statistical techniques used for data analysis. So friends, after getting data, then your next work is to analyze that data, to reach at the findings, okay, to interpret that data. So how you will interpret the data? So for interpreting the quantitative data, you will be using certain statistical techniques. Okay, it may be a parametric statistics or it may be a non-parametric statistics. It is given in MES 016 educational research course. I request all of you, please go through that course. Okay, you just correlate the in the teleconferencing session that we are discussing, and the same thing you also go through the units that are included in your theoretical course. So here the data that you have received by using certain techniques, further you will be analyzing those data by using certain statistical techniques if it is quantitative data. And if it is not quantitative data, if it is qualitative data, if the data is based upon certain interview or certain techniques that you have used to your study, that may be interview or that may be observation. Okay, so how you will analyze those data? What technique you will be using for analyzing the observation and interview based data, which is mostly qualitative in nature, which is a type of narratives, which is a type of, you can say, interaction, a type of one-to-one interaction with the subjects or with the teachers researcher's interaction with the subject. So how you will analyze it, which is qualitative in nature. So these are the certain important aspects that come under the research methodology. Now our focus is on tools and techniques for data analysis, which address only one aspect of research methodology. Now let us go forward to understand that what are the different nature of data are there. I have already said that there are two types of, so far as nature of data is concerned, there are two types of data. One is called as the quantitative data and other is called as the qualitative data. In quantitative data, you see many a time you are using a type of questionnaire to collect data, and many a time you use a type of test. It may be achievement test, it may be intelligence test, or a creativity test, personality test, or aptitude test. So by using questionnaire and a type of test, the data that you will get mostly that data is quantitative in nature. Just like in achievement, I can say that out of 100, the subjects are secured. Let the first subject secured 72, second subject secured 68, third subject secured 55. So 72, 55, 62, these are the quantitative data. So that's why, so far as nature of data is concerned, we can say that data may be quantitative and many a time data may be qualitative. So how the data is qualitative? So many a time what you are doing, you are just taking interview of a teacher, that how the teacher is teaching a new concept to the students, what techniques the teachers are using, what technique or what method the teacher is using, how the teacher is engaging the students in the classroom in different ways. Okay, so for that, what you can do, you can just interview the teachers, or you can also observe the classroom behavior of the teachers, that how the teacher is teaching in the classroom. So here I'm just talking about two other techniques which is not exactly providing you the quantitative data. Just like when you are observing certain things, you are just recording the things happening in a very natural setting, just like in the classroom. A natural classroom, in a natural classroom situation, teaching and learning process is going on. Students are teaching, a teacher is teaching to the students, and teacher is also doing many activities. A type of demonstration, the students are also doing a type of demonstration. So all such things that you have to record it, and further you have to analyze it. And that analysis provide you not only a quantitative data, rather that will provide you a type of narratives, that a type of qualitative discourse, a type of interaction, and from there, from your observation, from your interview, certain meaningful data will come which is qualitative in nature. Okay, so data may be quantitative and data may be qualitative. In educational research, so far as nature of data is concerned, there is the possibility of getting two types of data, and it is based upon the nature of your research problem as well as the research questions and objectives that you have stated. If your research question is based upon to find out certain quantitative description of certain things, then definitely your data will be quantitative. And if your research objectives and questions are based upon to know certain qualitative aspect, to know certain growth concept, then you can say that the data will be qualitative in nature. If you want to know or want to understand the process aspect, means how the things are happening, how certain things is developing. So for that you have to observe certain things, and you have to explain it, you have to illustrate it with examples, and that what you have observed, you have to properly you can say explain it. So that is qualitative in nature. So in educational research, there is the possibility of getting two types of data, and I have already said that it is based upon the research problem that you have selected. Now let me to discuss about types of data and its sources. So what are the different types of data, and what are the different sources that we use to get data, to collect data? You see, mostly if I'll talk about the sources of the data, there are two different sources of the data. We get data by using the primary source or by using the secondary source. Now question is, what is the primary source and what is the secondary source? Primary source means in the first hand, when the researcher is directly involved to get certain data by interacting with the subjects, by you can say administering certain tools. It may be a questionnaire, it may be a type of test upon the subjects, upon the students, then you can say that this data is primary in nature. But many a time you will find that the data, the researcher is not directly involved to develop that data, to collect that data, but the data has already developed or already collected by another person, and that is available in a form, just like in a published form, maybe a research article, maybe in a form of a document, maybe in a form of a report. Okay, so what you are doing, you are just collecting those articles, those journals, those reports, and those policies, and you are analyzing those policies and documents, contextualizing to certain research questions that you have stated relating to a research problem. So here the data that you are using, that is secondary in nature. So that's why we use two different sources. One is the primary source and other is the secondary source. Now let us try to understand that what is the broad difference between the primary data and the secondary data. Very briefly, let me to focus upon primary data. Here you see data collected for the first time. That means when the researcher collect data for the first time for the use of his or her research, we can say that is the primary data. But when data collected by some other person and that is available in a form of a report, we can say that is the that's the data collected by using the secondary source, or that is the secondary data. And further, under primary data, we can say that it is original as it is collected by the investigator himself or herself. But in secondary data, we can say that it is not original as it is collected by other person for a different purpose. That purpose was different, but you as a researcher, contextualizing to your research, you are using that data. Further, under primary data, we can say that it is available in the raw form, but secondary data, it is not available in the raw form, it is in the finished form. Why it is raw form in primary data? So in primary data, let you are using a questionnaire, let you are using a type of test. So you are getting certain score, it may be 50, 60, 70, so far as achievement is concerned. So the score 50, the score 60, the score 70, we can say that these scores are just raw score. Further, by using certain statistics, you have to analyze the raw score, and you have to convert that raw score into group score, and you have to put certain meaning to that raw score. So that's why we can say that the data that's come under the primary data, which is in a raw form, and further in the secondary data, as already that has been collected by other person and that has properly analyzed and interpreted. So that's why it is available in the finished form, in the meaningful form. Further, under primary data, we can say that the data is reliable as it is prepared for the particular purpose. Whereas secondary data, we cannot say that it is necessarily reliable as it is prepared for other purpose, because the purpose was different so far as the secondary data is concerned. And again, under primary data, we can say that collecting primary data is time consuming and expensive, whereas getting secondary data is very economical. It is not time consuming because it is available in a form of a report, in a form of a policy. You are just collecting those policies and documents, and you are reading it and you are analyzing it. And lastly, I can say that primary data, no precautions and editing is required for using, but whereas in the secondary data, both precautions and editing is required for using, because that data is not prepared for your purpose. That data is prepared for some other purpose. So that's why proper editing and proper precautions you have to take for using it in your purpose. But for primary data, no need of editing and no need of taking much precautions. Now let me to focus upon different sources that primary, what are the different sources that we use to get data that we call as the primary source of data. Just like on your screen, you can just see when you are using a questionnaire to get data, that we do by using the primary source. Observation also comes under the primary source to get data, then interview, then doing a type of experiment as the researcher is doing himself or herself is doing the experiment to understand certain concept, understand certain effectiveness or impact of a new method, a new technology in comparison to the traditional technology and the traditional method that we are using to the students. So that's why it is also come under the primary source. Then social surveys. If you are doing a type of survey research, you are going to the field and you are interacting with the students and the teachers and other subjects. You are just trying to know the present status of certain problem. So that's why in the social survey, the data that you are getting, that also come under the primary source. And biography. So many a time what you are doing, you are just going through the biography. You can say autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi, autobiography of any other educationist, any other important personalities. Okay. So because they have written that document themselves, okay, other persons have not written, so that's why you can consider that the autobiography are primary data. Those data are not secondary data, as the person himself has written about himself. Now, let me to focus upon the secondary source of data. So what are the different sources that we use to get the secondary data? I have already said that these are mostly the published documents which has already, research has already conducted, and that has been, a report has been prepared, and that report is available in a form of a document. It may be in your library or it may be in any other library, right? Then census data. Okay, census data are also, you can say that the different census that we do, that is also available. The report is also available. We can say that that is also a secondary source of data. Then books we are using for our study, for our research. Then journals and articles we also do use as a reference for our research. Then websites, different types of reports. It may be policies, it may be any policy and planning related documents. So all these documents, when you are using in your study, you can say that you are simply using the secondary source. Now let me to go forward to understand after going through different sources, primary and secondary sources. Now let me to focus upon that what are the different types of tools that we use for doing our research. So friends, tools, broadly I can say that there are two types of tools. One is called as the standardized tool and other is called as the self-made tool. So we'll try to understand the very concept of standardized tool and the very concept of self-made tool. You see on your screen, you might be going through now. Standardized tool, here you see it is developed by the test specialist or the experts, whereas the self-made tool, that is developed by the teachers themselves or the researchers themselves. Many a time we prepare a tool and we standardize that tool because in the future that tool will be used by the large population, the huge population, that will be implemented not only in a particular situation, in a particular area, rather that will be used in any other area also, right? Let you have prepared a tool in Delhi. If you have standardized it, you can also use that tool in other areas, in Chennai, in Mumbai, in other institutions. So universal use is there in a standardized tool. But a self-made tool, which is very situational in nature, the researcher has prepared himself or herself, or a teacher for his or her classroom teaching, a teacher has prepared a test. That test, you can say that that is a self-made test. That is not a standardized test. So the scope of using a self-made tool is very limited. It's very situational. That may be confined to a particular class, that may be confined to a particular school or college or institution. Whereas the scope of a standardized tool is very vast. It may be used at any place, at any situation. Then further, under standardized tool, we can say that it is used upon a large group of population. Also, you can use in the research, but I have already said that the self-made tool is used in the specific learning situations. It may be in a classroom. Further, all steps are followed for test development, such as establishing reliability, validity, and norms, so far as standardized tool is concerned. But so far as self-made tool is concerned, simple steps are followed to know the content validity and try out of the test. So here, no need of establishing the reliability and validity of the tool so far as a self-made tool is concerned. Only if you have established the content validity, that how the tool is how the tool is using in the field, or how the tool is applicable, whether the contents are properly taken for preparing that tool or not, and if you have done a simple tryout of the tool, you can say that the tool is ready for use. But so far as standardized tool is concerned, if you have not established the reliability, validity, usability, as well as the norm, you cannot say that it is a standardized tool. You have to develop the norm. Norm means it may be the standard norm, it may be the edge norm, that upon which population that tool will be used. So that you have to develop. And the reliability and validity index, that also you have to establish by using certain techniques. So I'm not going to detail about the reliability and validity, but try to understand a standardized tool is a reliable tool, is a valid tool, but a self-made tool, you cannot say that always it is a reliable or always it is a valid, because that is a situational tool. That tool will be used upon a particular situation. But the standardized tool, that will be used in the universal situation at many places, at many upon many students at many times. Further, mostly the test items are average difficulty so far as a standardized tool is concerned, but so far as teacher-made tool is concerned or self-made tool is concerned, you will find that the items are either very difficult or very easy, because it is developed as per the teaching standard or as per the situation. If a teacher is preparing a tool, a self-made tool, so the teacher is preparing the tool for the students to whom the teacher is teaching. Teacher know that know the ability of the students, and teacher also conscious about the standard of teaching, that how the teacher has engaged the students. Then accordingly, the teacher will prepare the tool. So that means many a time it may be very easy, it may be very difficult, or it may be average standard tool also. But particularly when you are preparing a standardized tool for the universal use, for the use of the large population, then definitely the items or the questions that you will include in that tool, in that test, that should be average difficulty in nature. Because if it is average difficulty, that means most of the learners or most of the subjects will take the benefits of it. And if it is highly difficult, then you will find that very few population, few group of population, few unit of the population will able to solve it, whereas most of the units of the population will not able to solve. So that's why this is the principle, that if you have prepared a standardized tool, then definitely the items should be average in standard. Then lastly, I can say that in a standardized tool, mostly errors are minimized, whereas chances of making errors are there in a self-made tool. Because in self-made tool, you are not going to establish the reliability, you are not going to establish the validity, and you are not developing the norm. So that's why errors are integrated, errors are included in a self-made tool. But in a standardized tool, errors are mostly minimized. So friends, in your MA education dissertation work, if standardized tools are available and which is directly addressing your research problem that you have selected for your study, then no doubt you use the standardized tool. But if standardized tools are not available, and if you are not getting a suitable standardized tool, let few items are somehow related with your research problem, but many items in a standardized tools that talks about something different, that means that is not related to your study, that is not related to your research problem. So in such cases, so what you will do, you simply prepare your tool. You prepare a self-made tool and do proper tryout, and also do a type of phase and content validity, and you can use that tool for collecting data. So it is up to you. You know your research problem better, that what problem you have selected, then accordingly what tool you are supposed to use. So keep in your mind that two types of tools you can use for your dissertation work: standardized tool as well as the self-made tool. Now friends, let us come forward to discuss different types of tools that we use in research for data collection, mostly we use a type of test. We also use the questionnaire. We also use rating scale. We also use interview schedule, then observation schedule, and also we use a type of checklist for our research. In MA education dissertation work, in MESP 001, I have seen that the students are mostly using certain test and questionnaire. Many a time they are also using a type of attitude scale, or that you can say as the rating scale. And many a time also students are using for qualitative data, they use interview observation. So here I have taken in discussion 6 different types of tools. By using a test, questionnaire and rating scale, even if in a checklist, mostly the data that you will get which is quantitative in nature. When I'm talking about a test, it may be achievement test, it may be intelligence test. So here you are getting a type of quantity. And when I'm talking about questionnaire, so 2 types of data, so far as nature of data is concerned, are possible. It may be qualitative or it may be quantitative. In questionnaire, you may get certain quantitative data, okay, and if the questionnaire is, we'll be discussing further, if the questionnaire is open-ended questionnaire, you have just asked for certain suggestions, certain opinions of the subjects of the sample, then mostly the data will qualitative in nature. So that's why in a questionnaire, 2 types of data is possible to get. It may be quantitative or it may be qualitative. But in a test, the data that you will get, mostly that is quantitative in nature. Here there is no scope to get qualitative data. But in interview and observation, as you will just take the interview of the subject, interact with the subject, involve yourself in a type of discussion with the subject. So the data that you will get, mostly that is qualitative in nature. And in observation also, in observation, you are just studying the process, that how the things are happening. So that's why the data that you will get, which is qualitative, mostly qualitative in nature. And to talk about the checklist, so many a time you are using a type of checklist to collect data. So when you are using the checklist, mostly the data is quantitative in nature, and some extent it is qualitative in nature. In checklist, if further you are involving yourself, engaging yourself, that the availability of resources, then further how the resources are working. So when you are just going through to know the functionality of the available resources, then definitely you are coming to the qualitative aspect, which may be the part of a checklist. Okay, so that's why in checklist, mostly the data that you will get, which is quantitative in nature, but some extent it may be qualitative. So now particularly we will be discussing that how you can prepare a test, how you can prepare a type of questionnaire, then rating scale, then interview, observation, as well as checklist. Now let us go forward to understand a test. So test is used to know the ability or performance of the subject. So why we use the test? We can say that the achievement test. Why we use the achievement test? To know the achievement of the students, to know the performance of the students, to know the progress of the students, to know the competency level of the students, to know the mastery of the students, to know the ability of the students. So that's why when we use a test, it means we are just measuring, we are just assessing the performance of the learners. It may be related to a particular subject, it may be related to science, it may be related to mathematics, or may be related to other subjects. And even if performance not only based upon the subject competency, it may be based upon certain other skill areas, other areas also, how you are doing the things in the field. Okay, so that's why test is used to know the ability or the performance or the mastery or the progress, etc. And what are the different types of tests we can use, particularly in educational research, in your dissertation work in MA education program? You can use a type of achievement test if you want to know the achievement level of the students in different subjects, and that you want to address in your dissertation work, in your study, in your research problem. You can use the achievement test. Then you can use a type of aptitude test. Okay, if you want to know whether the students are having certain aptitude or not, that is potential ability or the not. It may be mechanical aptitude, it may be musical aptitude, it may be mathematical aptitude, or other types of aptitude also. So certain aptitude tests you can also prepare, and aptitude tests are also available on a particular age level, on a particular standard, which is very much standardized. So you can also use a type of standardized achievement test, or you can also use a standardized aptitude test. And if standardized achievement or aptitude tests are not available, simply you can prepare those tests for doing your study. And further, intelligence test, creativity test, and personality test also. If you want to know in your study that the level of intelligence of the learners, and as an example, let you want to know the relationship between intelligence and achievement of the students at the school level, at the secondary school level. So what you can do? So here, under the scope of your study, you're supposed to use two types of tool. Two types of test. One is the intelligence test, and other is the achievement test. In intelligence test, which is appropriate as per their age, as per their standard, you can use a standardized intelligence test, and by administering that intelligence test, you can just know that what is the intelligence level of the students. And further, you have to prepare an achievement test. You have to administer that achievement test of the students, okay? And by measuring achievement test, you can find out that what is the score pattern, what is the achievement pattern of the learners, of the students, of the sample. Then further you can just correlate, means who is doing well in the intelligence test, or to whom you are saying that so far as the score is concerned, you are saying that highly intelligent or excellent or brilliant, okay? So whether he or she is equally doing better in the achievement test or not. Okay, so in this way you can just establish a type of correlation. It means who is doing better in intelligence, whether he or she is doing better in achievement or not. If equally they are doing better, you can say that there is a positive correlation between achievement scores and intelligence score. But if it is contradictory, that means who is doing better or who is very much intelligent but not doing well in achievement. Factors may be different. But here you are just contradicting that intelligence is not having positively correlated with achievement, which is not possible. I am just providing one example. So if your research study, if your dissertation work is based upon these two variables, intelligence and achievement, then definitely you will be using two tools. One is the intelligence test, then other is the achievement test. Then accordingly, aptitude, creativity and personality. If you want to know the personality pattern of the students, okay, if you want to know whether the students are introvert or extrovert, or whether the sample is ambivert, if you want to know such type of personality pattern, and if it is addressed in your research problem to know the personality pattern of the learner, of the sample, of the population, so you can use a type of personality test also. Then accordingly, creativity test. If you want to know whether the learners are having that ability to create something innovatively or not, to create something new or not, whether that type of creativity is with the learners or not, so you can use a type of creativity test. So friends, under test, 5 types of tests are there: achievement, aptitude, intelligence, creativity and personality. You can also use it, or if it is already developed and which is available in a form of standardized test, you can also use it. Or if it is not available, if the standardized tool is not available, you can also self-made, or you can also prepare it for your study. And now let me to just focus upon some of the guidelines for preparing a test that will further help you for if you are preparing a self-made tool, that will help you. You see, test is developed for a particular age group or standard. That means, let you are preparing for secondary school students, so that means they have a certain age group. It may be age 14 or 15. So that's why it is based upon certain standard. Standard means class 9th or 10th standard if it is secondary, or 11th and 12th as per the NEP 2020. Now 11th and 12th is also considered as secondary, starting from class 9th to 12th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th. So it should be, the questions should be based upon certain age group as well as certain standard. Then questions for the test are taken from the content of that standard or the age group. Time limits are fixed to response the test. So in a test, time limits are there. Let the learners will attend that test, and they will complete that test within half an hour. So you supposed to provide half an hour. You shouldn't provide more than that. Then proper instructions are given to response the items. Proper instruction means how the learners will record their response, where they will record their response. Okay, so proper instructions you supposed to provide. Examiners are usually record the responses on the test sheet. So many times what happens, the learners in a test, the researchers in a test, what they are doing, they are simply writing. It is not like that. You are supposed to provide it to the sample unit, to the students, to the subjects, and they are supposed to write it. Then we get mostly quantitative data by using a test. I have already said that in a test, you will get the data that is in terms of numerals, that is in terms of numbers, in terms of frequencies. So that's why quantitative data is possible to get by using a test. Then test is used mostly in descriptive and experimental research. And to analyze a test score, we need the use of varieties of statistics. So friends, when you are doing a type of experiment, or even you are doing a type of descriptive study, you are going to the field, you are interacting, or you are using certain tools like a questionnaire or a test. So there is the chances that you will get quantitative data. And for analyzing those quantitative data, you will be using certain statistics. That statistics may be a parametric statistics or may be a non-parametric statistics. For descriptive statistics, you can say you might be using the measures of central tendency to know the average score, measures of dispersion to know or measures of variability to know the standard deviation, or to know the correlationship between two variables, or to know significant difference between two groups. So here you will be using a parametric statistics, that is t-test. So friends, as per the data, you will be using statistical techniques to analyze it. Now further, let me to focus upon the second tool that you can use for your MA dissertation work, that is questionnaire. A questionnaire is a device. This is as per the Good and Hurt definition of a questionnaire. A questionnaire is a device consisting of a series of questions dealing with some psychological, social, educational topics sent or given to an individual or a group of individuals with the object of obtaining data with regard to some problems under investigation. So in a questionnaire, you have to prepare a questionnaire basing upon certain research objectives. Okay, so what is the research objectives? Then accordingly, what are the questions that supposed to be included in the questionnaire, or what are the questions to be included in the questionnaire to ask to the subjects. Okay, and you can use the questionnaire individually, or you can use the questionnaire in a group also. That means you can give questionnaire to individual students, and you can also provide questionnaire to group of students simultaneously. They will go through the questionnaire, they will read the item, then accordingly they will give the responses. They will record the response, and basing upon the response, you have to analyze it. And so far as questionnaire format is concerned, it may be a closed questionnaire, or it may be an open-ended questionnaire, or it may be a mixed form of questionnaire, which you can say that closed and open-ended questionnaire. Now, the concept is, what is a closed questionnaire? In a closed questionnaire, mostly you will find that questions is given, and certain responses are also fixed. Just like a question is given, and responses are just like yes or no. So here two responses are given, yes and no. The learners or the subjects, they will make a tick mark with yes or no. And if it is a multiple types of question, a question is given, and with that question, let 4 options are given, A, B, C, and D. The subjects, what they will do, they will just select one option. It may be A, it may be B, or C, or D, right? So in a closed questionnaire, you will find that with the question, certain standard responses are given, and the subjects will select one response or more than one responses also among the given responses, right? This is called as closed. Here you are just making a type of restriction upon the subjects that they will not go beyond to provide their responses. But so far as the second format of questionnaire, that's called as the open-ended questionnaire. In open-ended questionnaire, you will find that a question is given, and with the question, a space is given. Just like you have just asked about their vision, about their opinion, about their ideas, about their suggestions, that how the things has happened, and why the things has happened. Okay, so that's why here you will find that the descriptive responses will come. The responses will not come which is very much quantitative in nature. But in a questionnaire which is closed form, you will find that the data that you will get, or the nature of responses that you will get, which is very much quantitative in nature. But in open-ended questionnaire, you will find that the responses that you will get, which is very much qualitative in nature. You will find a type of narratives, you will find a type of description, and further by proper coding it, you have to just take out certain meaning from that description, from that narratives. And the third format of questionnaire, that's, you can say that is a mixed form of questionnaire, or you can say that is the closed and open-ended questionnaire. So you will find that in a mixed form of questionnaire, you will find certain items or certain questions which is closed. Okay, it may be let 2 options are given with the questions, 2 responses are given with the questions, or 4 responses are given with the questions. So you subjects are restricted to give their responses. At the same time, you will find certain questions are there in the same questionnaire which is very much open in nature. That means the subjects will provide their opinion, their suggestion, their ideas, their likes, their dislikes. Okay, and they will also explain the process aspect, that how the things has happened. So in a questionnaire, I have already said that so far nature of data is concerned, there is the possibility of getting both quantitative as well as qualitative. That's why the items or the questions may be closed or may be open-ended, or it may be a mixed form of questionnaire also. Then accordingly, as per your research problem, you have to just select, or you have to state the items, you have to write the items, whether it will be open-ended or closed or a mixed questionnaire. Then these are the certain guidelines of a questionnaire. I'm just going through it. Items in a questionnaire should fulfill the purpose of the questionnaire. Language of the questionnaire should be understandable. Then further social acceptance of the responses should be there. Then proper sequencing of the questions should be there. Length of the questionnaire. So many a time when you are preparing a questionnaire, you shouldn't take many questions. Rather, you should confine to take few questions. It may be 20, 25 or 30, not like that 100 questions, because the subjects, they will not pay attention, they will not properly fill all the questions. So that's why length of the questionnaire should be limited. Expert opinion in developing questionnaire should be taken. Both quantitative and qualitative data are gathered by using the questionnaire. I have already explained. Then questionnaire is highly used in the descriptive studies. In a survey types of research, when you are going to the field and interacting with the subject, mostly we are using a type of questionnaire. Now, let us try to understand what is a scale, particularly what is a rating scale. Rating scale is a term applied to expression of opinion or judgment regarding some situation, object or character. Opinions are usually expressed on a scale of value. Rating techniques are devices by which such judgments may be quantified. So here, the judgments that you will provide upon certain statement, that will be rated in different level. Further, we will be discussing. Mostly we use rating scale to measure the attitude of a person towards a certain situation or towards an idea or character. Here quantitative data are gathered by using the rating scale. Here there is no scope to get the qualitative data, and the rating scale is highly used in descriptive research. Here you see one example I have taken. This is a type of Likert type of rating scale, Likert type of attitude scale. Here the question is an example on attitude of students towards the science class. How the students, or what type of attitude the students are towards a science class. Certain statements are taken here. These are not the questions, these are the statement, and few statements are positive and few statements are negative. And against each statement, you see 5 options are given, 5 ratings are given, responses are given. S, A means strongly agree, A means agree, UN means this is undecided, D means disagree, SD means strongly disagree. first statement is science classes are interesting. So this is a positive statement. So here what the learners will do, they will just put upon one response among the 5 responses that has given, whether they are strongly agree or simply agree or undecided or disagree or strongly disagree. And second question, if I'll come, which is a negative question, negative statement, that is science laboratory is dull and boring. So here you see, when I'm coming to the second statement, which is a negative statement, so how as a researcher, how the researcher will score it. In a negative statement, for strongly disagree, higher score will be given, and for a positive statement, for the subjects, if the responses is given in strongly agree, so higher score will be given. So I can say that so far as scoring is concerned, in a positive statement, for strongly agree, you can just give 5 score, for agree 4 score, for undecided 3, disagree 2, and strongly disagree 1. Or you can also start from 4 also. Strongly agree 4, agree 3, undecided 2, disagree 1, and strongly disagree 0. But in a negative statement, just like science laboratory is dull and boring, just like 5th number statement, you see, reading the textbook is a waste of time. Just go through 7th statement. Most class activities are monotonous. Item number 9. The problems we are studying are not important. And the last statement, that is, I am not very enthusiastic about science. So these are the certain negative statements. For scoring the negative statement, the scoring pattern will be simply reversed. That means for strongly disagree, you have to provide the highest score. Just like for item number 2, if you start from strongly disagree. So for strongly disagree, you have to give 5 score, then disagree 4, undecided 3, agree 2, and strongly agree 1. So accordingly, you can also score. Next, only 2 minutes are left. Let me to very briefly focus upon the another tools. Interview, we can also use interview for your research. Just like interview is a two-way method which permits an exchange of ideas and information. Mostly interview is used for obtaining qualitative data, I have already explained. And we use interview in historical, philosophical, as well as in descriptive studies. 2 types of interview can be used. That may be a structured interview, or it may be a type of unstructured interview. In a structured interview, already questions are fixed. You are not going to change certain questions, but in an unstructured interview, basing upon your interaction with the subjects, you can also add certain more questions, right? And many a time you can also add certain questions expecting that the subjects will give certain descriptive answers, certain descriptive responses. Okay, so certain questions are not fixed. As per the situation, as per the demand of the situation, you can also include certain questions. And so far as observation is concerned, many a time what you can do, you can just simply observe the situation. When something is going on, what you can do, you can just be a part of that group and you can observe the situation, what is going on, and you can record the process, and further you have to analyze it. Just like in the classroom, when the teacher is teaching, simply you can sit in the classroom and you can observe that how teaching learning process is going on in the classroom. It may be 2 types of observation, participant and non-participant observation, and it may be structured and unstructured observation also. Further, so far as checklist is concerned, many a time we do a type of status study, just like when we are going to a school to inspect certain things, okay? And we observe that what are the different infrastructural facilities available in the school, including the human resources. So we observe the things on spot and we record it, and we use a checklist. If infrastructure is available, then what is their number, whether it is properly functionable or not. So such type of things also we do in educational research. So friends, today we discussed about different types of tools and techniques that we use in MA education dissertation work, particularly in educational research, for collecting data. In our next session, in any other day, we will be addressing on other issues of educational research. Thank you.
Are you interested in television journalism or radio journalism or online journalism? Or do you want to learn with the flexibility of open learning? Or if you are a working professional, wants to enhance your knowledge and skill with certification in the field of electronic media, then School of Journalism and New Media Study IGNOU offers PG Diploma in Electronic Media for you. This program includes audio and audio-visual program production for radio, television and online platforms. Here are some important details about the program. We have total 8 courses of 32 credits, 6 theory courses, 1 practical and 1 project. Eligibility: bachelor's degree in any subject. Minimum duration 1 year, maximum 3 years. Medium is English, but students can write their examinations, assignments, practical and project in Hindi also. So if you are interested in television, radio or online media, please come and join IGNOU's PG Diploma in Electronic Media.
Good afternoon, learners. Welcome you all to this Gyan Darshan session. Now, today I will be discussing on a particular topic, that is phytogeographic regions and endemism. Now, this particular unit, it belongs to plant ecology and taxonomy, this particular course of BSc General in botany. Now, to start with, there are actually 2 topics on which we are going to focus today. One is phytogeographic regions, especially we will be talking on phytogeographic regions of India. And then we will be discussing on the distribution of the flora, and based on the distribution, the plants can be categorized into 3 groups, of which one group is the endemic flora. Basically, we have 3 different groups, that is wides, endemics and discontinuous species, of which the second one is very, very important from your examination or from your semester point of view, that is endemism. So, what is meant by phytogeography? Phytogeography is the branch of biogeography which is concerned with the geographic distribution of plant species and their influence on the earth's surface. So, you can see from the very name that it is a combination of plants, that is botany, and to some extent it also has the essence of geography, because you want to study the pattern of distribution of the flora across the globe or across India in our cases. Phytogeography is concerned with all aspects of plant distribution, from the controls on the distribution of species ranges to the factors that govern the composition of the entire communities and floras. So, the distribution of flora and what are the factors that govern the distribution. Sometimes you may find a particular plant which is very widely distributed. You may find a particular plant which is very much restricted in its localization. Or you can find a presence of a particular plant which is sporadic in nature, that is in some parts of the world it is found, again in another part of the world it is found. Okay, so it's not uniform distribution. So these are the different patterns based on which you can categorize the distribution, and all these are included within this phytogeography, within this branch of study. Now, one of the earliest proponents was Prussian natural scientists who is known as Alexander von Humboldt, and he is regarded as the father of phytogeography. Why? Because he was actually one of the pioneers who was instrumental in studying these phytogeographic patterns all across the globe. Van Humboldt advocated a quantitative approach to phytogeography that has characterized modern plant geography, or that has actually led us to understanding of the distribution pattern of the flora across the world and also in India. Now, phytogeography can be divided into two categories. One is descriptive phytogeography. Descriptive means it deals with the actual description of the floristic or vegetational groups found in different parts of the world. That means you need to identify the flora, you need to describe the flora, that means in which family it belongs to, what are the salient features of that particular flora, and how the geography is actually affecting the morphology or the different salient features of that particular flora. So all these are encompassed within descriptive phytogeography. Next, you have the interpretive or dynamic phytogeography, that is dynamics of migration and evolution of plants and floras. Perhaps you must be knowing that it might happen that a particular plant, it originates in a particular center, and based on that you perhaps know that there are different centers of origin. Now, it's not that the plant will remain confined in the center of origin, because ultimately it might spread. Ultimately the seeds, the propagules, these might spread to a different area, and then there can be another center which is called as the center of diversity. So I think it is very clear that there is some sort of migration of the propagules, migration of the seeds from one part of the globe to another. Okay, so these kind of things, these kind of features or the migration features, these are all included within dynamic phytogeography. Now, based on this, if we now come to India, what is the scenario in India? So based on this, okay, you have phytogeographic regions, 9 phytogeographic regions in India. Now, what are phytogeographic regions? This is the area of uniform climatic conditions that possess distinctly recognizable vegetation. And based on that, India has been categorized into 9 such regions. Now, which are these regions? Western Himalayas, Eastern Himalayas, Indus Plain, Gangetic Plain, Central India, Deccan, Western coasts of Malabar, Assam, and Bay Islands of Andaman and Nicobar. So each of these phytogeographic regions, they have their own characteristic flora, and these regions can be further subdivided into certain sub-regions, which we will come one after the other. So if we start with Western Himalayas, now it belongs to which region? Kumaun to Kashmir. The climate is dry, cold climate, 100 to 200 centimeter annual rainfall, and this can be divided into 3 zones. One is sub-mountain region, that is the Shivalik Hills and adjoining areas, 300 to 1500 meter altitude with 100 centimeter annual rainfall, and it has certain unique kind of vegetation, as you can see, dry evergreen, subtropical pine, and tropical moist deciduous forest. Next, we come to the temperate or the mountain zone. So this is 1500 to 3500 meter, wet forests, moist and dry temperate forests. And finally, the alpine zone, that is further high in altitude, that is 3500 to 5000 meter, scanty rainfall, cool and dry climate, and mostly you have the alpine forests. Which are the typical flora that you find here, or the plant species? Acacia modesta, Bombax ceiba, Cassia fistula, Tuna ciliata, Picea, etc. Next, we come to Eastern Himalayas, that is the mountain ranges from Sikkim to Arunachal Pradesh. More than 4000 species of phanerogams, they exist in this particular region. It can be divided into 3 zones. Tropical zone, that is heavy rainfall for long period, and you have mostly predominant shal forests. mixed deciduous forests, semi-evergreen, evergreen and subtropical forests, savanna grassland with typical plant species like albizia, cymbopogon, etc. Even you have certain forest vegetation which is comprised of quercus, cycas, pinus, salix, populus and so on. The second zone that you have is the temperate zone, which is 2000 to 3500 meter in altitude. Broad-leaved deciduous and coniferous forests consisting of magnolia, abies, larix, suga. Then you again have the alpine zone, that is further height, that is 3690 to 5540 meter, consisting of Artemisia, Potentilla, Carex, rhododendron. Rhododendron is a very popular species in the eastern Himalayas. Next, you have the Indus plain, that is consisting of Gujarat, Delhi, Rajasthan, Haryana and Punjab. So, dry region, it's mostly plain, deserts and irrigated lands. You have different combination of biomes. Dry and hot summers alternating with dry and cold winters. So, it's an extreme type of climate. Annual rainfall less than 70 centimeter. Tropical thorn forests and grasslands. 3 types of vegetation, that is tropical dry deciduous, tropical thorny and dry shrubs. Again, Indus plain can be divided into 5 zones. The Aravallis, riverine lowlands, Kutch, arid sandy zone, xerophytic species are mostly present in the arid sandy zone and the desert zone. So each of these zones, each of these 5 zones again has its own characteristic species, plant species. As you can see, in the Aravallis you have the Butea, Acacia catechu, Ziziphus. In the riverine lowlands you have Dalbergia sisu, Populus, Eucalyptus. In Kutch you have Acacia, Tamarisk, Stenospora. In the arid zone, that is, you have the xerophytic species like Argimon, Opuntia. In the desert zone you have Calotropis, Procera, Capparis, Eleusine and so on. Next you have the Gangetic plain, that is now from Delhi to Sundarbans, passing through Bihar, Orissa and Uttaranchal. So even the Bengal, that is also included in the Gangetic plain. Dry deciduous, scrub and moist deciduous vegetation 50 to 150 centimeter. Tropical moist deciduous forests, dry deciduous forests, thorn forests and mangrove forests. Perhaps all of you know that the Sundarban, the mangrove forests in Sundarban, this is a very well-known, it's a very important kind of ecosystem which is present in India. Now again, this can be categorized into Upper Gangetic, Lower Gangetic and the Sundarbans. Upper Gangetic plain, you have the Acacia, Balanitis, Jatropha. Lower Gangetic plain, Shorea robusta, Artocarpus. In the Sundarbans, as I said, it's the largest mangrove forests with an area of 15,000 square kilometer, and mostly you have the different halophytic species or the mangrove species like Avicennia, Sonaraceae, Bruguera, Phragmites, Typha. So these are very much popular in the Sundarban area. Next, you have the central Himalayas, Nepal, Kumaun Himalaya in west, Sikkim Himalaya in east, divided into western, central and eastern Nepal. Like you have the Acer, Quercus, Barbaris, Polygonum, etc. Deccan, that is the southern part of the country, starting from southern Madhya Pradesh to Kanyakumari, excluding Western Ghats. So here you have the one of the most popular plant species, that is cotton. You have the black soil, so which supports the growth of cotton. 100 centimeter annual rainfall with dry evergreen, dry deciduous and swamp forests. You have the trees, shrubs, climbers, grasses, mangroves. Almost everything you have here, like trees like Michaelia champaka, Santalum album, the sandalwood, very popular here. Shrubs, hibiscus, bauhinia. The climbers, hiptage, smilax, vitis. Grasses and palms, you have the bambusa, dendrocalamus, boracious. And among the mangroves, you have Avicennia, cereops. Then you move to the western coast of Malabar, So now you come to Gujarat to Kanyakumari along Western Ghats, including Kerala, Maharashtra, Gujarat and Karnataka. So here you have a humid climate with 400 centimeter annual rainfall. Climate is tropical in the coastal areas and temperate in the hills. Among the vegetation you have evergreen, wet evergreen, moist evergreen and moist deciduous. And a very, very important kind of forest is predominant in the Nilgiri hills, that is wet temperate forests, which are commonly called the sholas. And again you have the mangrove forests in the saline swamps on the coasts. Now here you have different kinds of forests, like temperate evergreen forest you have in the Nilgiri, Palni, Annamalai hills, trees with red tinged leaves, rhododendron, clematis. Subtropical evergreen forests consists of Embelica officinalis, Muraya. Tropical evergreen forest mostly in the Mysore Plateau, western side of Western Ghats, which include Dillenia, Cinnamomum, etc. Among the tropical semi-evergreen forest, you have along the plateaus of Western Ghats certain species like Rauwolfia serpentina. The tropical deciduous forests which are present in the wet vegetation in Cochin and west coast of Karnataka consists of teak, very, very popular species, Tectona grandis, Butea monosperma, Dalbergia latifolia. Again, along the Arabian seashore, you have the mangrove forest consisting of Rhizophora, Candelia, Xylocarpus, etc. Then we come to Assam, that is the Brahmaputra Valley, Jayantia Hills, Khashi Hills, Garo Hills, Mishmi Hills, the Santosh River, Naga and Mizo Hills, and all the northeastern states like Mizoram, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, and Assam. They have a very high temperature and heavy rainfall. Tropical evergreen and wet temperate forests in the lower plains, while subtropical pine forests in the hilly tracts up to 1700 meter altitude. They have sufficient rainfall with dense vegetation. Here again it's a combination of different types of forests. You have the tropical forest, that is along the valley or the low foothills, evergreen forests, deciduous forests, wet temperate forest, pine forest which is at a considerably high altitude 1200 to 2000 meter above the hills, the riverine forest that is along the banks of rivers and streams, swampy forest that is in Assam, Panicum, Scirpus, Salvinia, Azolla, these are water ferns, so these are very much common in the swampy forests, and then grasslands. Along the plains of Assam you again find certain grass species, Phragmites, Sorghum, Saccharum and so on. And finally you go to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which again has a warm and humid climate with high temperature and annual rainfall. It consists of littoral mangrove, evergreen, semi-evergreen and deciduous forests, and this is very, very rich in biodiversity. So that is all about the 9 phytogeographic regions in India. So when you are to study this, you have to remember the names of each of these regions, and then as I discussed that what is the area, I mean which area do they comprise of, what is the climatic condition, what is the rainfall pattern, okay, and then what kind of forests persist in this particular region, and then under each kind of forest you have to remember certain examples, at least 2 or 3 examples from each category. So in that way your answer will be completed. So certain things need to be remembered when you are discussing this topic. You need to remember certain plant species, you need to remember certain names, okay, so that has to be done. Now the next part is that, as I said, that okay fine, this is the phytogeographic region. Now based on the distribution pattern, as I said, the plant species can be categorized into 3 groups. As you can see, that is wides, endemics and discontinuous species. What is wide? As I said, from the very term it is very clear that these kind of plant species are very much widely distributed, and we often say that they are cosmopolitan in distribution, but actually in case of plant system the plants, they do not, in the true sense, they exhibit this cosmopolitan character. But even then, based on the fact that these plants are widely distributed, we call them wides. Like Chenopodium, then Taraxacum officinale, Chenopodium album. So these are some of the examples of wides. Now, the next category will be the endemism, and we will discuss this particular topic in a little bit elaborate fashion, because this is a very important topic. What is meant by endemism? Endemism means the phenomenon of confinement of a species, genera, if it can be even family or a group, to a very small area. That means you will find certain plant species which are very much restricted in their distribution. They are not widely distributed. They are confined within certain regions. And this concept is known as endemism, or this phenomenon is known as endemism, and such species are known as the endemic species. Now, this concept was given by A.P. de Candolle. Now, obviously, there should be certain reasons that why such plant species are endemic, why they are having a very restricted or confined distribution. So, we will study those factors, and we will study the different theories connected to endemism. Now, you can see that certain regions of the world, they have this high percentage of endemic species. The fynbos in Cape region, Hawaiian tropical dry and rainforest in United States, Madagascar dry deciduous and lowland forests, New Caledonia dry and rainforest, Palawan rainforests in Philippines. So these are some of the regions which have a very high percentage of endemic species. Now, these are some of the common endemic species which are available in India. Caryota urens, Ficus religiosa or bengalensis, that is the people tree, which we commonly call as people tree. Piper niger or Piper longum, Elateria cardamomum, Eleusine coracana, Crotalaria juncea, Butea monosperma, Eagle murmelos, Rhododendron, Sesamum indicum. So these are some of the very common endemic species, and many of them have much economic importance as well. Now, what are the characteristics of endemics? Localized distribution because of narrow ecological amplitude, lack of potentiality to migrate due to saturated genomes, the dispersal propagules unable to sustain during migration due to physical barriers. Real endemics never migrate, while neo-endemics do migrate. Now, in this context, we will classify the endemics. The endemic species can be categorized into different groups. Now, first is neo-endemics. What are neo-endemics? New means new, modern. So, modern species or endemic forms of recent origin. Why they are recent origin? Why they are endemic? Because they are newly evolved, they did not have sufficient time, they did not get the sufficient time to extend their distribution through migration. So, maybe after many years, it may be possible that the new endemics may not remain as endemic species, because if they are given sufficient time to migrate, they might migrate. But till date, they are considered to be endemic and they are newly evolved, like Senecio comrensis. This is an example. Now, it can be differentiated into three types: schizoendemics derived from taxon of same chromosome number, patroendemics, restricted diploids giving rise to polyploids, and apoendemics, just the reverse, restricted polyploids giving rise to diploids. In addition, there are certain other special terms given, like local endemics, which are found in small land features. Local, that means again restricted. Progressive endemics, that means with time they can spread. Retrogressive endemics, in which case the area of distribution is contracting. And the microendemics, that is the endemics of the lower groups. So all these classifications, they are under the neo-endemics. Next is paleoendemics. It is just the reverse of neo-endemics. Paleo means which are ancient origin. That means which have primitive origin. Endemic forms of ancient origin restricted to a region due to physical barriers. That means these species, they have originated long back, but they could not migrate. They are restricted. Why? Because there are physical barriers, desert, mountain, oceans, etc. climatic change, okay, erratic climate, and presence of a particular physiogeography or soil, that is edaphic factors. Maybe they could find that particular soil conducive where they are restricted. If they migrated, they must have tried migration, but they could not succeed in other kinds of climatic condition or other kinds of soil. So they are localized. But they are not newly evolved. They are primitive, or they are of primitive origin or ancient origin. Now, one very reliable example will be in case of epibiotics. When I come to epibiotics or relic endemics, which is actually the third category of endemics, you must have heard about ginkgo biloba. Now, ginkgo biloba is actually a gymnosperm, and it is also popularly called as the maidenhair tree. Now, this ginkgo biloba is considered to be a relic endemic. Relic endemic means ginkgo biloba actually is a plant which persisted from the Mesozoic to the Cenozoic times. That means if you consider the geological time scale, okay, it belonged to a particular epoch or an era which is quite ancient. It is not recent. So ginkgo biloba actually existed during that time, and all the contemporary flora which existed along with ginkgo biloba, they are no more on this earth, but ginkgo biloba is still there. So it is actually considered as a living fossil, and it exists even today in certain parts of China and Japan. So there you can find ginkgo biloba, but all over the world you will find almost very, very less percentage of this particular plant species. Of course, in many areas they are now cultivated. That means plantations are there. But naturally growing ginkgo biloba is very, very restricted across the world. So this is known as the relic endemic or epibiotic. That means they are the survivors of the fossil group. They could survive only in restricted pockets due to exceptionally favorable environment and lack of competition from other organisms. Why ginkgo biloba exists only in certain parts of China and Japan, not in all over the world? Because it finds that particular climate or that particular region to be favorable for its growth, and that is why it exists in abundance. Okay, so in short, relic endemics or epibiotics means plants which are not of recent origin but retaining a narrow distribution. So they are similar to paleoendemics, but you have to remember that relic endemics or epibiotics mostly includes the living fossils. Okay, that is, their contemporary members are no more on this earth. Pseudoendemic. Pseudo means false. That means these arise due to appearance of mutations in the local population, but they ultimately tend to disappear. So I think pseudoendemics, they are not actually, in the true sense, they are not endemics. Okay, they originate due to certain drastic genetic alteration, which you call as the mutations. So now we come to the theories of endemism. Now I will spend a little bit of time here because you have to very carefully understand the different theories which explains the phenomenon of endemism. Now first one is the epibiotic theory. Now we are already introduced to the term epibiotics. What is epibiotic? That is, like I gave the example of ginkgo biloba. That means the plant species which are of ancient origin but they could not migrate, they are confined or they are localized. Why? Because they could not find favorable climate, favorable soil or favorable environmental condition in other parts of the world, and that is why they are confined. Okay, so that is actually explained in the epibiotic theory which was given by Ridley in 1922. That means they are the survivals of the larger groups of the past, and they are considered to be the relic type, and they did not develop sufficient methods of dispersal. They have a very weak dispersal mechanism, and that is why they could not migrate, they could not spread across the world. And they are very peaceful species. They are confined within a particular region. They are not at all aggressive. They don't want to spread themselves. They are happy with, they have very little requirements and they are happy with it. So that is actually explained in the epibiotic theory of endemism. So they remain confined as the relics of the past within a limited and isolated area, like Sequoia gigantea, which is found in Sierra Nevada, and Ginkgo biloba, as I already told, that it is endemic in China and Japan. So it could not migrate, it could not spread. The second theory, which was given by Willis in 1922, again, it's called as the age and area hypothesis. What is this theory? What does this theory speak about? It says that there is a relationship between the age of a species and the area of a species. That means if the age is small, and then this relation is what kind of relation? This is directly proportional. That means age and area. Age directly proportional to the area. What does it mean? If the age is new, the area will be low. If the age is less, area will be less. If the age is more, area will be more. That means a species which is newly evolved, it occupies a lesser area, and a species which is which has a very ancient origin, or which dates back to ancient time, it has a very large area. It will encompass a very large area. So you see, this particular hypothesis, it contradicts the epibiotic theory. So area of distribution of a species is proportional to the period of time for which it has existed. There is a direct relationship between area of distribution and age of a species. So if you have a small area, then you have to understand that it is recent in origin. And if it has a very large area, then you have to understand that it is ancient in origin. So endemic species and genera are new and recent forms of gradually extending plant groups, and they represent, now this theory states, age and area hypothesis states, that all endemic species are newly evolved. Why? Because the endemic species they are confined. They occupy a very small area. So they are newly evolved. So this is according to the age and area hypothesis. And obviously those species which you see to be widely distributed, then according to this hypothesis, they have originated at a very ancient time or primitive times. But this is not true. There are several contradictions with this hypothesis. Although there are supporters of this theory who cite certain examples of plants like Primula, Impatiens, Gentiana, Coleus elongatus and Coleus barbatus. These are distributed on the dry Retigala mountains in Sri Lanka. The former species is endemic, while the latter is widely distributed in tropical Asia and Africa. So the two species, they have different kind of nature, or they have different characteristic feature in terms of their distribution. Now there are scientists who actually criticize this theory, and there are several grounds for that. Number one, area of distribution of a species depends upon a number of factors, including the dispersal capacity and geographic barriers surrounding the area of occurrence. This is number one. Number two, some dwindling species or fossil forms have persisted in living condition in certain pockets due to continuation of favorable condition and lack of competition. Example, Ginkgo biloba. So if you take Ginkgo biloba is as I said, it is an endemic species. But Ginkgo biloba is not a newly evolved species because it existed in the early geological time periods. So that contradicts the age and area hypothesis if you take Ginkgo biloba as your example. Some recently evolved economic plants are occupying vast stretches of land in the world because of interference by man acting as dispersal agent. This point is also very important because it has been seen that certain species are newly evolved, but they are very much widely distributed across the globe. Then if you support age and area hypothesis, you cannot explain that. Because see, when you are explaining or discussing the migration or the distribution of a plant species, you have to understand that the climate or the soil, this is not the sole factor. Because in addition to that, there are anthropogenic activities. Man themselves, they are acting as a dispersal agent. So the human intervention is there. So that should be taken into consideration when you are discussing the anything on migration or distribution of a species. So I hope you get a clear-cut difference between the epibiotic theory and age and area hypothesis. One simply contradicts the other, and of course there are examples which support age and area hypothesis. Again, there are examples which support epibiotic theory. Third one, the third theory is known as the theory of tolerance. That is, Good in 1931 proposed this particular theory. What does it suggest? Plants are able to spread to only those parts of the world which have environmental conditions within the range of tolerance of the species. So, all kinds of climatic conditions cannot be tolerated by all plant species. I mean, whenever a species tends to disperse, the seeds tend to disperse, it would be conducive with the existing climatic conditions. For instance, the soil, water, minerals, sunlight. So these are all the basic raw materials for a plant growth. And whenever all these conditions are suitable, then only a plant will, then only the seed, it will actually germinate. So the plant tries to spread, but even then it cannot. Why? Because of this factor, that is the range of tolerance of the species. The total area which a species can occupy due to its range of tolerance is called potential area. This area is not static. It may shrink or expand due to change in the gene pool, evolution and environment. Because if you remember, when I discussed succession in one of my sessions earlier, I told that climate is not a factor which is constant. Okay, so climate keeps on changing. The environment is not a static parameter, or it's a variable, because what the conditions that exist at present may not exist after several years. So based on that, this potential area cannot be static. It can change. That means total area which a species can occupy, it will change. It will change depending on the environment, the gene pool. So the species may not be able to spread in all these areas. So it might be possible that it might expand, the area might expand, or the area might even shrink depending on the change in the climatic conditions or the environment. So that is one of the important factors that also dictates the endemism, because today you are finding a plant which is widely distributed, but someday it might happen that this same plant species might change into an endemic species because it could not find the surrounding situations to be favorable for its growth. So that is actually explained in the theory of tolerance. So this is mostly based on the tolerance of the species, or sometimes it is also termed as the ecological amplitude. That is how much it can tolerate the variations in the different factors. So these are the three theories that exist till now with regard to the explanation of the phenomenon of the endemism. Now what are the factors? Very simple. That is, one will be the geographical factor. Why they are endemic? Why they are confined? Because they cannot migrate. Why they cannot migrate? Because there are some barriers. There are some geographical barriers. Like in the north you have the Himalayas. In south you have so many oceans, the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea. We also have the Bay of Bengal. So oceans, seas, in deserts. So that is the beauty of India, that you have almost everything in India. And that is why in India you also have a very rich endemic species, because there are species which cannot cross these barriers. Like you find 82% endemic species in Hawaii Islands, 72% in New Zealand, and 50% in Fiji Islands. So you have the lofty mountain chains, you have the deserts, you have the oceans, vast oceans or seas. In India, the Himalayan range and the South India, they have a very high percentage of endemic species. But Indo-Gangetic plain, very poor in endemic species, because in Indo-Gangetic plain there is no such barriers. It's a plain land. So there are no geographical barriers, adequate geographical barriers. So they have less endemic species. So all such endemic species are enabled to migrate freely either to the north or to the south. Why they are not able to migrate to the north? Because you have the lofty mountains in the north. Why they are not able to migrate to the south? Because, as I said, they have you have vast oceans in the southern parts of India. So that's the reason that you find a huge abundance of endemic species. Among the biological factor, you have the natural crossing and mutation among closely related species growing in a favorable locality. This has given rise to freely formed new species in the temperate and alpine vegetation of the Himalayas. So you have the crossing, you have the mutation, which again gives rise to a new species. And once a new species is formed, obviously it will have a restricted distribution, because it will again take time to migrate, because it's a newly evolved species. And therefore that is one of the reasons for the endemism or the localized distribution. Now the next part is the calculation of the global pattern of endemic richness. Now again, how do you calculate the percentage of the endemic species? So here a little bit of formula or little bit of mathematics will come into the scenario. Now one is the taxon based method. This is calculated as a sum of range size extrapolated to the total flora and corrected for area using a standard area of 10,000 km square. The range size is measured as the number of grid cells or ecoregions in which a species occurs. So in this taxon based method, in certain parts, like as you can see Africa, Bolivia and Australia, you have large data sets with a large number of vascular plants. Whereas in Indomalaya, you have an ecoregion based data. So the data sets will vary according to the taxon based method. The data sets will vary for different parts of the world. The second method that you have is the inventory based method. Now this method is based on the number of species of endemics and on the chronology, that is the affiliation of a species to a broader biogeographic group. The flora of each region is first divided into chronological groups. The amount of range equivalents attributed to the region is calculated as the fraction of the region of each chronological group multiplied by the number of species of the chronological group. So you have to calculate two parameters. One, the fraction of the region of each chronological group, and second, the number of species of a particular in a particular chronological group, and you multiply the two and you get the amount of range equivalents. Now the values for all chronological groups are summed up to yield the total number of range equivalents for the region. This total figure is divided by the area size of the region in kilometers square and multiplied by 10,000 to yield the number of range equivalents per 10,000 kilometer square. Because here also you have seen what is the standard area in taxon based method. Also you see that the standard area that you have taken is 10,000 kilometers square. So you are applying the same here also. The island flora and fauna maintain high degree of endemism due to geographical isolation and limited interchange with neighboring mainland. So you have to also understand. See, I gave you an example of Hawaiian island. Now why island have very high endemic species? It is very clear. As I said, it is bounded by oceans or seas. Okay, so the plants, they get very little chance to spread. Okay, so they remain confined. And they are very peaceful plants. Okay, they don't want to fight. Okay, even like humans, the plants also, there are certain plants which are very much aggressive. They fight amongst themselves. Okay, for in order to procure more land, okay, more resource, just like human nature. There are plants which also they love this kind of things. Again, there are plants which are very peaceful. No, I am happy with what I have. Okay, so the island community plants, okay, these are very peaceful plants. They are happy with little things. They are happy with small things. So even the endemic species are also in that way. They are very much satisfied with what they have. Okay, they are peaceful in nature. Okay. Next we come to the third category of species, that is discontinuous or disjunct species. Now this is totally different from the other two, that is whites and endemics. Discontinuous means you find them in some parts of the world, again you don't find them somewhere, again you find in other part. So it's a very sporadic kind of thing. It's a very random kind of distribution. Now why this is so? The plants occurring at two or more distant places of the world, separated by hundreds or thousands of kilometers apart. You find maybe in America, again you are finding in the extreme east. In between you don't find this plant. So I'm giving you just a hypothetical example. Now you must be wondering why. So there are factors that explains this phenomenon of discontinuity. Now what are those phytogeographic causes? The species might have evolved at more than one place and failed to migrate outside their original habitat because of barrier. One factor can be barrier again, like the endemism. Species which were once widely distributed in the past disappeared from certain areas and are now surviving in some distant pockets. This is one of the very, very important factors. I will come to this factor shortly. Plants having specific climatic requirements are found in widely separated areas with similar environmental condition. Example, plants of Arctic region are also found in alpine zone of high mountains in tropics and subtropics. Now, for explaining the discontinuous distribution, you have two theories, theory of land bridge and theory of continental drift. We will quickly see these two theories. Theory of land bridge. Now, land bridge occur in between separated continents, helping in the migration of various taxa from one continent to the other. Uniform distribution of plants and animals in different parts of the world during Paleozoic era was due to those land bridge. With the passage of time, the land bridges became submerged and the connection between various continents snapped beyond the dispersal capacity of the organism. So what does it mean? Like initially what happened is the land masses were continuous. There were no separation. So the plants lived happily. They were evenly spread. But as time passed on, like in the Paleozoic era, it was the situation. But if you have read about the geological time scale and the different events occurring during the geological time scale, you must have studied or you must be knowing that it happened during the prehistoric times that some land masses got snapped beneath the sea. Some land masses they became discontinuous. They got separated. So what will happen? The species which were evenly distributed, they get disturbed. They get scattered now because the landmass is no longer continuous. They are no more joined by those land bridges. And therefore, this is one of the factors that explains the discontinuous species or discontinuity. So that is theory of land bridge. Theory of continental drift, propounded by Wegener. Now the whole landmass was a single supercontinent during Paleozoic era, and we call it Pangaea. And this was surrounded by sea on all the sides, which was named as Panthalassa. So Pangaea and Panthalassa initially. But then as we moved on during the Mesozoic, Pangaea, what happened? So Pangaea was a continuous landmass. But what happened during the Mesozoic? The Pangaea was split up into two large land masses, Laurasia in the north and Gondwana land in the south. So what happened? Pangaea got splitted up. And what will happen to the plant species which are present in the Pangaea? They will get separated now. So they will get discontinuous because the landmass has been split into two parts, Laurasia and Gondwana land. So the two large landmasses having characteristic flora and fauna now broke up into new landmasses called continents. So what happened? Even later on, Laurasia and Gondwana land also they got split up. And all the continents present in the present day map that we find, they actually originated in this fashion. And therefore, it is not surprising that the plant species will be scattered, or they will undergo a very discontinuous distribution. So this is actually explained in the theory of continental drift. So Laurasia gave rise to Eurasia, Greenland and North America. Gondwana land gave rise to South America, Africa, India, Polynesia, Australia and Antarctica. About 135 million years ago, reorientation of continents began. The continents were drifted apart by oceans. This is called continental drift. So ultimately, this actually what is meant by continental drift. I hope you get the point. And therefore, this is also termed as the theory of the continental drift, which also explains the distribution of a species, why they are discontinuous or why they are disjunct, called as the disjunct species. So I think these are some of the points which we should remember, or which we should focus upon when we are studying endemism, because wides and discontinuous species, these are also connected with endemism, and that is why while explaining endemism, I also intentionally brought these two terminologies in front of you so that you can very clearly demarcate between the three categories of the distribution of plant species. Now, we are slowly coming towards the end, and before ending, I will just take upon another topic which is also very much connected with endemism, and that is the biodiversity. Biodiversity hotspots. What is meant by biodiversity? Now, you know that the tropical regions, they have a very high biodiversity. Okay, because of various factors, like they have a very high, they get a very high solar radiation. Okay, any particular species, they cannot gain predominance because of the predator attack, and because of the surrounding environmental conditions, because it is a very hot and humid type of climate in the tropical region. Okay, so they are very much chances of getting contaminated or infection, pathogen infection. This is also very high. Okay, and the predator action, that is also to some extent, that is also very high. So any species cannot gain a very kind of, a dominance pattern, and that is why there are so many species which are flourishing together, and that is why it's a very rich biodiversity. Now, based on that, the biogeographic regions with high diversity, that is actually called as the biodiversity hotspots, you will find that 2.3% of the land surface of the earth, they contain half of the world's endemics. And you will find that the endemic species are very, very rich in these biodiversity hotspots. Now, what are the factors that determine hotspot areas? Number of total species, number of unique species, and number of species at risk. Now, if you try to find out the biodiversity hotspot areas in India, so number one, again, you have the Eastern Himalaya, which is the cradle of speciation. You have so many endemic species also, Nepenthes khasiana, the pitcher plant, Taxus wallichiana, from which you get the very important anti-cancerous agent, that is the anti-cancerous drug, that is Taxol. Taxus wallichiana, which is a threatened species because we have extracted Taxus so much for the anti-cancer drugs. That is why it's a threatened species. Center of origin of palm species, 2000 endemic species out of 5800 plant species in the Indian region. Paphiopedilum spicerianum, it is also known as the lady's slipper orchid. It is endemic to the northeastern region of India. So you can see how rich the Eastern Himalaya is in terms of endemic species. And again, Eastern Himalaya, as I said, is a biodiversity hotspot, one of the biodiversity hotspots. Second, if we go to Western Ghats, 308 tree species out of 490 are endemic. 1500 dicot endemics. Agastya Malai Hills harbored the highest plant diversity and endemic species. 112 orchid species out of 245 are endemic. 3,000 out of 6,000 species of vascular plants are endemic. So these are again, as I said, biodiversity hotspot, as well as they are having a very high abundance of endemic species. Indo-Burma. So here also you have half out of 13,500 plant species to be endemic. And then Sundaland, which is the area that we consider to be Sundaland, Southeast Asia, including Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Here you have mangroves, coral reefs, seagrass beds. So all these, you have several, among these 4 biodiversity hotspots, if you calculate, you will see that you have a very high endemic species. Lastly, when we really talk about biodiversity, then we should also discuss what are the causes that or what are the factors that actually can be considered to be the threats to biodiversity. Habitat destruction, resource management, increased tourism, illegal immigration, poaching, climate change, forest fragmentation, introduction of exotic species. Many species from outside India, they have migrated and they have settled. Okay? They have established. In ecology, we call it ECESIS, ECESIS. So they have actually established, and these are very aggressive species. Lantana camera, Parthenium hysterophorus, Eichhornia crassipes, that is water hyacinth. These are all exotic species, and they are actually threats to biodiversity. They are causing our natural flora to get eliminated. Natural catastrophic agents, flood, drought, cyclone, volcano, fire. And lastly, the jhum cultivation, which is usually practiced in the northeastern states of India. So all these factors have cumulatively led to the loss of the biodiversity, or they can be considered as a threat to biodiversity, and we should be very careful. We should, that is why actually different conservation acts, they have actually come up. Because if we actually lose our biodiversity, it is very simple. We are losing a large number of endemic species also. Okay, that is species which are confined to a particular region. That will lead to the loss, and we will really lose our natural resource, because the vegetation, it is considered as our natural resource. Okay, so with that actually we will come towards the end of today's session. So please go through the unit. Okay, all of these units you will find in that particular course, that is Plant Ecology and Taxonomy, as I said. Go through them, and in case of any difficulty or query, please feel free to send us queries through email, or you can also call us at any time. Thank you all, and have a very, very good learning.
Hello and welcome learners to today's session on